Back then, the ocean was our home, our mother, and our grave. I still remember the scent of diesel and rust inside that narrow steel tube, the hum of machinery like a heartbeat beneath our feet. We believed we owned the silence of the Pacific, that no one could touch us beneath those rolling waves. They told us the Emperor watched over us, that the sea itself bowed to the rising sun. And we believed them. Each dive felt like slipping into eternity, pressure closing in, the world above fading away, only the whisper of propellers and the soft click of valves breaking the stillness. I was 19 when I joined the crew of the I-176, a long-range submarine built for the Imperial Navy's glory. The officers were stoic men with hard eyes and tired souls. The veterans had faces carved by salt and shadows. We hunted convoys, ships packed with American supplies heading toward Australia, or carriers prowling near the Solomons. Those were our targets. And for a time, we believed we were the hunters. But one night in late 1943, as we drifted in the warm black waters south of Truk Lagoon, everything changed. The ocean began to whisper differently. There was something in the water, something invisible, something listening. We didn't know it yet, but the Americans had begun to seed the seas with strange devices, floating metal buoys that could hear us, track us, even talk to the airplanes above. The first time we encountered one, we thought it was a mine. It bobbed silently in the moonlight, small, harmless, just a can drifting with the current. The captain ordered a cautious approach. The engineer and I suited up, opened the deck hatch, and stepped into that black, endless night. The stars above looked like they were painted on glass, and every ripple felt alive. We hooked the strange buoy with a pole and dragged it aboard. It was lighter than we expected, with wires coiled like intestines and a small speaker humming faintly. No markings, no flag, no smell of oil, just a soft, eerie pulse like a heartbeat in metal. The captain frowned. He said, "America no mono da." American. We opened it. Inside was something none of us had seen before. Circuits, not tubes, a crystal, not a compass, and a strange paper label that read ANCRT-1A Sonobuoy. That night, for the first time, we realized we were not alone down there anymore. The ocean that once hid us had turned against us. The next few weeks were different. We moved slower, quieter. Even our laughter grew softer. Every splash, every echo felt like an eye watching. We could hear distant pings, rhythmic, deliberate, sonar calls bouncing through the dark like cold fingers reaching for us. The captain said they were just whales, but we all knew better. The Americans were listening, and their ears were everywhere. One morning, we surfaced near the Caroline Islands to recharge the batteries. The sea was calm, too calm. The horizon glowed pink with sunrise. Suddenly, the hydrophone operator called out. Faint propeller sounds above. Aircraft engines. We dove immediately, but the engines followed us, circling like sharks. Then came the pings, sharper, faster. Each one echoed through the hull like a hammer on bone. The captain ordered silence. We shut down everything but life support. The air grew heavy, thick with sweat and fear. We could hear the men's hearts beating faster than the engines outside. Then an explosion, distant at first, then closer, depth charges. The whole submarine groaned as shock waves ripped through the water. Bolts popped, glass cracked, and someone screamed when the lights flickered red. We went deeper. 200 meters, 250, deeper than the manuals allowed. The pressure made the hull creak like an old temple. We waited. Minutes felt like hours. The pings stopped. The Americans had lost us, or so we hoped. When we surfaced that night, the captain looked older, smaller. "This ocean," he said quietly, "no longer belongs to us." No one answered. We stared at the stars, listening to the hiss of the waves against the hull. The sonar buoy we captured still sat in the control room, broken open like a wounded animal. Some of the younger sailors took turns staring at it, as if trying to understand how something so small could turn the tide of war. Days passed, weeks maybe, time blurred underwater. We received radio orders to patrol near the Bismarck Sea, but morale was low. Food was stale, air foul, tempers short. The sonar pings haunted our dreams. Some men swore they could hear them even when the engines were silent. The mechanic, old Sato, began muttering that the sea had betrayed Japan, that the gods had abandoned the navy. No one laughed. Even the captain stopped praying aloud. One night we heard something drifting near the hull, faint tapping sounds, metallic, deliberate. The sonar operator froze. "Another buoy," he whispered. But this one wasn't sending, it was listening. We could hear its faint transmission pulses echoing into the depths. The captain made a decision. We'd rise at dusk, capture it, and destroy it. That night, as the submarine surfaced, I climbed the ladder with 2 men. The sky was dark violet, the air thick with mist. We spotted the buoy floating a few meters off the bow. I reached out, and then a light flashed from above, a plane. They had used the buoy as bait. Machine guns tore into the water. I dove back down, but one of the men, Hayashi, didn't make it. The captain shouted, engines roared, and we dived again, deeper and deeper into the black. The sonar pings returned, closer this time, louder, almost mocking. For hours they hunted us. By dawn the sound was gone, but so was Hayashi.
His empty bunk became a silent reminder the ocean no longer cared for us. When we finally returned to base, engineers took the broken buoy to Tokyo for study. They said the Americans had turned the sea into a battlefield of sound. Invisible, precise, relentless. And we, who once ruled the waves, were now ghosts hiding in their shadows. I still hear those pings sometimes, late at night, when the wind hums through the bamboo outside my home. Each one echoes like a memory from the deep, a reminder that even the vast ocean can be conquered, not by strength or fire, but by silence and sound. We thought the sea belonged to us, but in truth, we belonged to it all along.
The next months felt like years. The world above burned, and beneath we drowned in silence. After that night, the one where Hayashi vanished beneath the gunfire, something inside the I-176 broke that no wrench could fix. We no longer looked at the sea as home. It had become a vast, listening enemy. Every sound was a threat, every echo a blade pressed against the hull. Pause. Orders came from Tokyo, new missions, new patrol grids, but none of us believed in victory anymore. We were ghosts in steel coffins, obeying commands carved by pride, not reason. And yet duty held us together. The captain, Commander Inoue, was a man who'd served since before I was born, a scholar of the ocean, quiet, patient, haunted. He once told me, "A submarine does not fight the enemy above, it fights the sea itself." I did not understand then, but after the buoys, I did. Pause. They called it Jinrai Senjo, the battlefield of thunder. The Americans had filled it with ears, sonar buoys, radar-equipped patrol planes, destroyers armed with depth charges that fell like thunder from heaven. We used to listen for ships, now the ships listened for us. The I-176 was ordered toward the Solomons, where supply convoys needed interception. But every route was covered with sonar nets, invisible lines of sound sweeping through the ocean like ghosts dragging chains. We began to experiment, wrapping the hull in rubber sheets, reducing our speed, altering the propeller pitch. The engineer joked that we were trying to make the ocean forget us, but the ocean forgets nothing. Pause. One night near Bougainville, the hydrophone operator picked up something strange, a mechanical heartbeat that wasn't ours. A chain of pulses, steady, human-made. "Buoy network," he whispered. We drifted, engines off, waiting. Then we heard voices, faint American radio chatter relayed through the sea. "Contact, contact, bearing 180, possible sub." They weren't talking to each other by air. They were talking through the water, through their machines.
The captain clenched his fists. He said, "They are everywhere. Even the silence belongs to them." He ordered us to dive deep beneath the thermal layer, the cold zone that confuses sonar. The water pressed harder than ever, groaning against the hull like a beast. I watched the depth gauge needle tremble near the red. We were one breath from implosion. But the pings faded. For now, we lived. Pause. We surfaced days later under a full moon. The sky was too beautiful for war. The sea shimmered silver, and for a moment I forgot the noise, the fear, the war. Then I saw something glinting ahead, another buoy. The captain ordered it destroyed. I volunteered. We retrieved it carefully, and for a second I thought of Hayashi's last scream, the flash, the gunfire, the roar of the plane. But this time the sky was empty. I struck the buoy with a hammer until it split open. Inside, tiny wires, circuits, and something new. A small power cell labeled Western Electric. The Americans were advancing faster than we could understand. Pause. When we returned to Truk, engineers gathered us in a dim bunker.
They showed us maps dotted with hundreds of red marks, each one a buoy network, each one a trap. "They are mapping the ocean," an officer said, "with sound." The realization chilled me more than the depth ever had. They weren't just hunting submarines, they were listening to the ocean itself, building a new kind of warfare where silence no longer existed. After that meeting, morale collapsed across the fleet. Submarines vanished one after another. Some never reported again. Those who returned came back half-mad, whispering about invisible destroyers, pings that never stopped, oceans that screamed. Rumors spread that the Americans had found a way to make the sea itself betray us. Some said they could drop buoys by the hundreds from planes, each one alive with sound. Others believed they had trained dolphins. We didn't know what was true anymore. We only knew that the more we hid, the more they found us. It's funny, isn't it? We thought we were the shadows, but they learned to hunt the dark. By early 1944, we were ordered to patrol off New Guinea to intercept convoys. But our mission was no longer about attack, it was about survival. We drifted, engines silent, surfacing only at night. The ocean was no longer blue, it was black, full of secrets and whispers. Sometimes we could hear faint American music through the static, swing tunes, cheerful voices, laughter. We listened in silence, wondering if their airmen laughed above while we choked on recycled air below. Then came the night of the Great Hunt, February 1944. We detected an enemy convoy, 3 destroyers, 2 transports, perfect targets. The captain ordered a torpedo spread, but before we could fire, the sonar pings began, sharp, close, synchronized. They had found us before we even attacked.
"Full dive," the captain roared. Alarm screamed, and we plunged. Depth charges followed. 1, 2, 10, 20. The sea erupted. The hull shook as if gripped by a god. Men were thrown against the walls. Lights burst. Pipes cracked. I tasted blood, metal, fear. We went down past 300 meters. The hull screamed. Then silence. The world above stopped moving. The captain whispered, "They are waiting for us to rise." We waited. Hours passed. The air turned foul. The walls dripped with condensation. One man fainted. Another began to pray, his voice trembling. And still we waited, trapped between pressure and death. Finally, the captain made his choice. "We cannot live forever in the dark," he said. "Surface, whatever comes, comes." We rose like a dying whale, gasping for air and hope. When the hatch opened, dawn had painted the horizon red. The destroyers were gone. Only wreckage floated, wooden crates, oil slicks, silence. Somehow we had survived. But the victory felt hollow. The sea had spared us not out of mercy, but indifference. The captain stood on the deck, staring at the rising sun. "We are relics," he said quietly, "fighting a war that ended before we even knew it began." No one answered. The waves lapped gently against the steel, whispering a truth we all feared. The ocean had chosen its new masters. Months later, I would learn what those buoys truly meant. After the war, American reports spoke of Project Jezebel, of sonar buoys dropped by aircraft, relaying sound through radio to ships and shore stations, an invisible net that covered entire oceans. They could hear a submarine's propeller from miles away, even its heartbeat against the current. We were never safe, never unseen. Looking back now, I realize that was the moment we lost the ocean. Not when we lost the war, not when the empire fell, but when the silence itself turned against us. The Americans conquered not our land, but our sea. And they did it with sound. The ocean no longer belonged to us. It belonged to those who could hear it better. By the summer of 1944, the ocean had grown darker. Not from the night, but from our hearts. We were no longer warriors of the emperor. We were wanderers in the abyss. Men stripped of belief, kept alive by habit more than hope. Each dive felt longer, each surface shorter. The I-176 creaked with age, its hull streaked with salt and memories. Some nights the captain sat alone in the control room, the faint red glow of instruments painting his face like a ghost's. None of us spoke to him anymore. We had all learned that silence was safer than truth. News from the surface came rarely, and when it did, it came like whispers from a world we no longer belonged to. Saipan fallen, Truk under attack, the Imperial Navy broken.
Tokyo's voice grew quieter each day, orders shorter, more desperate. Patrol, intercept, resist. But resist what? The sea itself had turned against us. Every patrol was haunted by invisible watchers, sonar buoys drifting like metal jellyfish, each one humming with quiet menace. Even when we heard nothing, we could feel them, their invisible ears pricking at every vibration, every turn of the propeller. It was no longer a battle between ships. It was a war between noise and silence, and we were losing. Men began to unravel. The youngest sailor, Nakamura, barely 17, started waking at night screaming that he could hear the sea talking to him, 1,000 voices whispering through the steel. "They're calling my name," he'd say, eyes wide, trembling. We tried to calm him, but deep down we understood. In the silence of the depths, imagination becomes a weapon. The brain starts to hear what isn't there. Footsteps, laughter, whispers. Even I began to feel it, that sense of being watched from every direction, as if the sea had eyes. The captain tried to keep discipline. He spoke of duty, of the emperor, of honor beneath the waves. But his voice had changed, softer, slower, as if he was speaking to ghosts. Then came the day the sonar failed. A cable snapped, short-circuited by salt water. We were deaf in a world of sound. The irony wasn't lost on us. The Americans could hear everything, and we could hear nothing. That night, when we surfaced to repair it, the horizon was lined with fire. Distant bombardments, flashes of orange over islands we once called ours. The captain watched in silence. The gods have left us, but the ocean remains. He turned to me. If we die, let it be below. That is where we belong. Days later, we received one final order: intercept an enemy convoy heading toward the Philippines. We all knew it was suicide, but no one said a word. There was nothing left to lose. The engines roared one last time, heavy and tired. As we approached the patrol zone, we heard them. Pings, hundreds of them, layered like rain. They came from all sides. We were surrounded. The captain closed his eyes. "Silent running," he whispered. "Let the ocean decide." We drifted, breathless in the dark. Then came the first explosion, distant, then closer, closer still. The hull bent, cracked, screamed. One light burst, then another. The air filled with smoke and fear. We dove deeper, 150 meters, 200, 250. The hull shook. The pressure made my ears bleed. The helmsman cried out. The engineer prayed. Another explosion tore through the aft section. Water sprayed in, flooding compartments. The captain gripped the periscope base, refusing to move.
He shouted, "Hold her steady!" We tried. For a few eternal seconds, it felt like the world was collapsing around us. And then, silence. Somehow, we survived. The destroyers must have thought us dead. We lay on the seafloor for hours, trapped in darkness. The oxygen was thin. Men began to faint. The temperature dropped. It was as if the ocean was gently closing our eyes for us. In that silence, I thought of home, of the cypress trees, of my mother's voice, of the sound of rain on temple roofs. Strange, isn't it? A man dies in a submarine, and what he misses most is the sound of the wind. When we finally surfaced after 21 hours, the sky was black with smoke. The convoy was gone. The war had moved on without us. The captain didn't say a word. He simply stared into the distance, his face pale and empty. "We are no longer part of this world," he whispered. "The sea will remember us, but Japan will forget." Weeks later, near the Marianas, we received word. The I-176 was to return to base for refit. We never made it. A patrol aircraft spotted us 2 days later. We dove, but the pings came almost immediately.
Sonar buoys, dozens of them, dropped in a ring around our last known position. The ocean lit up with sound. We could hear their conversations, faint but clear. Contact confirmed, prepare depth pattern, release in sequence. The captain gave one last order: secure compartments, no panic. I can still hear his voice, calm, resigned. The first charge hit directly above, then another. The world turned white. Steel tore like paper. I was thrown against the wall. Water rushed in, cold and endless. I remember grabbing a pipe, gasping as the lights went out, the noise fading into nothing, and then silence. When I awoke, I was on the surface, clinging to debris, alone under the burning sky. The I-176 was gone. Everyone I knew, everyone I had served with, swallowed by the sea that once served us. I drifted for 2 days before an American destroyer found me. They pulled me aboard, half dead, half mad. A young sailor offered me water. His accent was strange, but his eyes were not cruel. In that moment, I realized the war had ended long before our ship sank. The Americans had not conquered us with hatred, but with understanding, with patience, with science. They had listened to the ocean better than we ever could. Years later, after the surrender, I returned to Japan. The cities were ash and silence. The empire was gone, but the sea remained calm, eternal, uncaring. I became a fisherman, working the same waters I once prowled as a hunter. Sometimes when I cast my nets, I hear faint echoes through the hull, distant pings like ghosts from the deep. Maybe they are memories, maybe they are warnings. I tell the younger men that the ocean has ears, that she remembers everything, every scream, every prayer, every depth charge. They laugh, of course. They think I'm just an old fool haunted by dreams. But sometimes, when the fog is thick and the water still, I can almost hear the captain's voice whisper, "This ocean no longer ours." And I close my eyes, let the waves carry the sound, and wonder if somewhere down there, beneath miles of darkness, the bones of the I-176 still listen. We thought we could master the sea, but in the end, the sea mastered us, and in its endless silence, it taught us the final truth of war, that even victory means nothing when the world beneath you no longer belongs to you. I suppose that's why I still listen at night. Not for ghosts, but for forgiveness, because some sounds never stop echoing, even after the war is long gone. It has been many decades since that night, the night the sea swallowed the I-176 and gave me back to the world above. Sometimes I wonder why it spared me. Perhaps the ocean wanted a witness, someone to remember the silence that ended an empire. The younger men on the docks call me Ojeson, old man, relic, shadow. They do not understand that beneath their peaceful waves lies a graveyard of iron and echoes. I spend my mornings by the harbor now, watching the trawlers come and go, their diesel engines humming like the heartbeat of a new age. The sea is full of color again, bright, busy, alive. But beneath that calm surface, I still sense the ghosts moving, whispering, waiting. On some nights, when the wind is soft and the tide slow, I hear them, faint sonar pings, drifting through the dark like memory. Most people would call it imagination, but I know better. The ocean never forgets. I once believed we fought for honor, for glory, for the emperor's dream of an eternal nation. But the truth came slowly, like the tide. We fought for control of something that could never be owned, the sea itself. And the Americans, with their sonar and their buoys and their endless machines, they didn't conquer it either. They just learned to listen. That was their victory, not in destruction, but in understanding. They turned sound into sight, silence into weapon, and in doing so, they changed war forever. After the surrender, when I first saw the American ships anchored in Tokyo Bay, gleaming under the gray sky, I remember thinking, these men had heard us long before they ever saw us. Their war was not one of fury, but of patience. Ours was built on faith, theirs on sound, and faith cannot silence sound.
I returned to my village after the war, to the coast where I was born. The people had aged like the land, tired, quiet, but still alive. I found my mother's old house empty, her garden overgrown with weeds. In the shed, I discovered a small wooden box she had left behind. Inside it, a photo of me in my submarine uniform, smiling, proud, unaware. On the back, she had written only 3 words, "Come home soon." I sat there for hours, listening to the waves outside, realizing that the sea had kept me, not her. Years passed, the world changed, Japan changed. The sea that once bore our submarines now carries cargo ships, research vessels, and children playing with plastic buoys, small, harmless, unaware that they drift over the bones of sailors who once fought to rule those same waters. I sometimes tell the children stories of the old days. They listen for a while, then laugh, then run back to their games. I don't blame them. Their ocean is full of life, not fear.
They've never heard the sound of a sonar ping echoing through steel, never smelled the oil and sweat of a submarine under siege. Their sea is theirs. Ours was never ours at all. But when the storms come, and they always come, I see the truth again. The ocean still remembers. The waves rise like the breath of ancient spirits, the wind howls like the hum of sonar, and the rain strikes the shore in rhythm like the distant thump of depth charges. The fishermen hurry home, and I stand alone on the pier, feeling the vibration beneath my feet. The same low tremor that once shook the hull of the I-176. The same song of the deep. The Americans call it the sound channel. The deep layer of water where sound travels far and fast, circling the world. I think of it differently. To me, it's the ocean's memory, a voice that never fades. Perhaps somewhere down there, the last echoes of our submarine still drift, still singing its metallic hymn, still whispering to the buoys that ended us. Perhaps the sea keeps them together, the hunter and the hunted, forever bound in sound. Sometimes I dream I'm back down there, in the dark, weightless, free. The captain's voice calls out softly, the lights flicker, the gauges glow red. Outside, the sonar pings return, slow and rhythmic, but this time there's no fear, only peace. Because now I understand. The sea never betrayed us. It simply showed us the truth, that no matter how deep we dive, how silent we become, how much we fight to master it, the ocean belongs only to itself. When I wake, I sit on my porch facing the harbor and listen to the wind through the ropes, the clang of masts, the gulls crying above. Those sounds, they are the music of survival, the proof that life goes on even after the deepest silence. Maybe that's what the Americans heard all along, the heartbeat beneath the water. Maybe that's what saved me. And now, As an old man, I tell this story not for glory, not for pity, but for memory. Because memory is the only thing that keeps the dead alive, and stories are the only way the living can listen back. The ocean remembers everything. The trick is learning to listen. So if you hear this voice, wherever you are, on land, in air, or at sea, remember the men who vanished beneath the waves. Remember that once the ocean belonged to no one, and that its silence was the last language of war. If you've felt the chill of that silence tonight, if you've heard the echo of those pings through this story, then maybe, just maybe, the sea has spoken to you too. And if it has, subscribe, share, and keep these stories alive, because the ocean doesn't forget, but people do. Let's not let it fade again. Until next time, keep listening to the deep.